I always thought that hell was screaming and cursing, but the real hell is silence. She is near, but at the same time far away. Her body is in bed, but her heart is elsewhere. Solia and I were together for 4 years, 3 of which were under the same roof. We met by chance. 7 minutes of conversation, and I knew she was the one. Nights without sleep, traveling to nowhere, cuddling up to films we hadn't finished watching. I was sure it was real. Over time, there was less spontaneity and more routine, but I believed that love was the calm after the storm. But gradually, hugs, kisses, even good nights disappeared. It was replaced by silent distance. She said she was tired, but this tiredness lasted every day. I noticed new passwords, night walks, messages with a smile. One evening, we were talking on the phone in a whisper in the kitchen, and I realized that something was changing. I tried to be better. I cooked, cleaned, made surprises. But she no longer looked at me as she used to. I became a background, a person who is still here, but no longer needed. I didn't check my phone. I was afraid that the truth would break me. But the worst thing was that I was afraid to go home. The point of no return was a candlelit dinner. She sat down and smiled. "Have you done something wrong?" And then there was silence, and I realized that I was no longer in her world. But I still held on, because loneliness is worse than betrayal. I just watched. I listened to the silence. She didn't say "I love you" anymore, and I was living next to a woman who no longer belonged to me. And if I had known what would happen next, maybe I would have stopped earlier. Translated with deepl.com, free version. There are phrases that have been echoing in your head all your life. Not because they are deep, but because they change everything. Her phrase was simple. "It's not what you think." And no matter how trite it sounds, it was she who shattered me to pieces. But that came later. At first, there was silence and observation. I became a shadow in my own house. I didn't ask questions. I didn't get jealous. I didn't put pressure. I just watched, silently noticed everything that I had previously missed. She changed the password on her phone. We didn't have such secrets before. I didn't demand access. She didn't hide the screen. We trusted each other. And now, everything was under codes, swiping sideways and quickly closed tabs. I saw her disappear into the bathroom for 40 minutes with her phone. She would sit on the edge of the bath and smile. I used to come in without knocking, and it was fine. Now the door is locked. One night, I woke up at 2:40 a.m. The bed was empty. The silence was deep. I went into the kitchen and saw her sitting by the window. She was wearing headphones. The light from the screen illuminated her face. She was smiling. Then she leaned closer to the screen, did something, and laughed out loud. Quietly, sincerely, like she used to do with me. I didn't say anything. I just watched from the corridor without going in. At some point, she turned around and saw me. She shuddered. She took off her headphones. "Are you awake?" I was thirsty. I was watching a film. And then I noticed for the first time that she was lying. Not just avoiding, but lying. There was a micro pause in her voice before she spoke. There was a nervous glint in her eyes. I wanted to say "I know," but I didn't say anything, because I was still not ready to lose her completely. Then I started to put the puzzle together. Without anger, without hysteria. I just watched, because part of me still hoped that I was making it up. That maybe she was tired. Maybe it was just a crisis. Funny enough, I even Googled it. Symptoms of emotional burnout in relationships. But every evening gave me a new piece of the puzzle. Meetings after work that suddenly appeared. Friends I had never met. Napkins in her bag with logos of cafes where we hadn't been together. And most importantly, a new scent. A perfume. It was not hers. It wasn't mine. It wasn't supposed to be in our bedroom. I started to catch myself in ridiculous hopes. When she was late, I prayed that she was at the gym. When she didn't pick up the phone, I believed she was just in the subway. When she wrote, "I'm with a friend," I asked God to make it true. I clung to the slightest evidence of her loyalty, but they were all as fragile as my heart. It culminated in one morning message. She had gone to the shower. Her phone was on the bedside table. I swore to myself I would never look at it. But then, I couldn't resist. The screen was active. A message in the messenger. A name I didn't recognize, Andre, but the style of the message. I couldn't be mistaken. "I still remember the taste of your skin. Will today be like yesterday?" I froze. All my muscles stiffened, as if someone had shot me in the chest. I had no right to see it. But I did, and I couldn't pretend anymore. I sat down on the bed. I wiped my hands. They were shaking. My heart was beating so fast I could hear it in my ears. She came out of the shower, wrapped in a towel. Is everything okay? Yeah. You look like you've seen a ghost. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to scream. But I couldn't. Because I needed one more piece of evidence. One more. The last one. I wrote to her friend. The one she was with yesterday. Hi. Thanks for spending time with Solia. She says you went to the bar last night. The answer came back in a minute. We haven't seen each other in a week. Is everything okay? I closed the chat. That was it. That was it. No more options. Then I did what I was most afraid of. I told her, we have to talk. She was confused. Did something happen? I answered honestly. Are you cheating on me? She was silent. For seconds. 10. 15. And then she said, it's not what you think. I don't know what exactly I was thinking, but definitely not what she would tell me. We saw each other a few times. Just to talk. Talk naked in a hotel? She sat down. She didn't cry. She didn't make excuses. She just said, I don't know why it happened. It's just, you've become distant. It was another blow. Because I was doing everything. I tried. I fought. And she just disappeared from inside. I asked, do you love him? She shrugged her shoulders. I don't know. And me? I don't know. That was worse than a no. I don't know was like saying, you're not important anymore. I didn't shout. I didn't insult. I just stood up and said, move in with your mom. I need to be alone. She agreed too quickly. No, let's talk. No, I'm sorry. Just, okay. And then I realized that she had already made up her mind. I was the last one who was still playing us. When she left, the apartment became empty. No smell of coffee in the morning. No music. No scattered things. The silence became even louder. I sat on the bed we used to sleep in together and tried to remember the moment when everything broke down, when exactly she stopped loving me, and why I hadn't noticed. The most painful thing was not the betrayal. It was the fact that she didn't even fight. She just gave up. She dropped out of my life like glass from a window, silently but irrevocably. I tried to pull myself together, to return to work, to communicate with my friends. But my head was empty. Every film reminded me of her. Every song sounded like a confession from my heart. Every couple on the street was like a ghost of my past. She didn't write for 2 weeks. And then, she sent me one sentence. I miss you. I read it. And I didn't reply. Because it hurt more, not because she left. It was because of how easily she left. They say there are 5 stages after an affair: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. But this is not a path, it's a loop. Sometimes you go through them all, and then find yourself back at the beginning. The first days after she left were a blur. I did not feel the time. In my dreams, she would come back and ask for forgiveness. But I would wake up and see only an empty space. I was looking for a reason. Not guilt, the reason. Because it was painful to blame her. It seemed easier to convince myself that I had broken something. I remembered when she started to move away. One evening I was late. She was waiting for me with dinner. I came late and irritable and didn't kiss her. She then said quietly, sometimes it seems like I'm just a background. And I just waved her off. I flipped through photos, listened to our songs, read old letters. In them she wrote, you are my home. And now this home is empty. Then I saw her on Instagram. A new image, a smile, a caption, glowing from within. I was scared because she was happy. Without me, I doubted. Maybe it was me who clung to a dead relationship. And at the same time, I hated her. For leaving so easily. For not fighting. And for him, Andriy. I found his profile. And I saw a photo with her hand on his shoulder. With the bracelet I gave her. I threw the phone down and screamed. For the first time in many days. Then I disappeared. I switched off from everything. I sat in the darkness because it was more honest than the light. On the 5th day, I went to the coffee shop where we met for the first time. I sat down at her favorite table. I ordered her coffee. I looked at the empty chair. The waitress asked, are you two no longer together? I left in silence. That night she wrote, forgive me. I think of you often. I looked at the screen for a long time. Finally I answered, why are you writing this to me? She, because I miss you. I don't know if I did the right thing. And then I realized that she didn't want to come back. She wants forgiveness, to relieve her guilt, to sleep peacefully. And what about me? I just turned off the phone. It was the first time I chose myself. And even though it was empty, it was mine. Honestly, I was left alone. And I started picking up the pieces. Not to glue them back together as it was, but to build something new. But before that, there was one more thing. Farewell. I thought the most painful thing was finding out. But the real pain comes afterwards, when there is only silence, dreams, and a pillow that remembers. I didn't want to hate her. It was exhausting. So I tried to understand, to put myself in her shoes. And I realized that I would have chosen me anyway. I wasn't perfect, but I was sincere and real. And she just left. Without a word, without a fight. She disappeared. I opened our old correspondence. The first hello, the first I love you, stupid quarrels. And I asked myself, did she feel it? And if so, where did it go? I imagined that she was coming back. She would say, I made a mistake. And part of me wanted to hear it. But another part of me was afraid of being a backup again. She wrote, I miss you. And I didn't know whether to reply or delete it. I imagined our meeting, her eyes, her everything is complicated. And myself, not chosen again. I wrote everything I wanted to say to myself, not to her. And then I erased it, because I realized it was not for her anymore. It was mine. I went to the park where we had our first kiss. I brought her old postcard. You are my peace in all storms. I set it on fire. It was a farewell. At home, I saw her sweater. I wanted to keep it, but realized it was just a thing, not her. So I put it in a box. I didn't throw it away, I put it away. She wrote again, can I see you? I replied, I'm not sure I'm ready to look into your eyes and not trust you. I understand. And I understood too. It was over. No more hate. No hope. Just emptiness. I began to return to myself. I didn't become stronger, but I learned to be with myself, with the cracks, with the memory. I no longer wait for her messages. I haven't forgiven her, but I don't hold on to the pain either. Because betrayal is not just about the body. It is a betrayal of time, trust, and the future. And I no longer want to return to the place where I was destroyed. Even if a part of me sometimes still asks, maybe. No, it can't anymore. There is a line. It is invisible. No scream, no signal. You just wake up one morning and it doesn't hurt anymore. You don't wait. You don't remember. Just silence. And it's even worse than tears. I woke up earlier than usual. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't think about her. She was no longer in the air. I made coffee and turned on some music. Not ours, new music. And I realized that I had started living without an echo. The same day, I met her by chance on the street. She was with another man. She was laughing. And I didn't run away, didn't hide. I just watched. And it didn't hurt. In the evening, I remembered her voice, and I could not remember. She was disappearing. And it was normal. I took out a box of things, letters, photos, an earring, a wrapper from the first New Year's Eve. I opened the window and threw everything away. Without anger. With love that no longer hurt. The last one was her note. Thank you for having you. I smiled. And let go too. I didn't wait for messages anymore. I did not look for answers. Because real silence is not scary. It is just there. And you live with it. One evening she wrote, I saw you. Can we meet? I used to fly to her. Now I just turn off the screen. Not out of resentment. I just had nothing to say. Love sometimes dies not in screams, but in silence. Without witnesses. It just disappears. I started living. No drama. No new story. Just me again. I traveled, met new people, and I learned to keep silent about what hurt. A year has passed. I sometimes dream about her. Sometimes I remember her. But it is no longer a knife, just a thought. Now I know, she is not evil. She is a lesson. About loss, about letting go, about myself. If you're in pain, know that silence passes. It scares you, and then it heals you. And the day will come when you will wake up and not remember her name. And in that moment, there will be freedom.